everybody. Welcome back to Use 'em. I'm Aaron.
I'm Drew.
You know, they can't all be great. You know, right out of, after Ravnica, we got War of the Spark. You know, everything's looking great. Modern Horizons, greater. And then Wizards decided to bring back core sets. And now we're here.
Well, I was going to call this the Rivals of Ixalan of this year, and then we found out there's Chupacabra.
This set wishes it had Ravenous Chupacabra. Yeah. This set wishes it had one staple, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'll try to be as excited as possible. So we're talking about Core 2020 today. Our pre-release just wrapped. The last event just ended. So we're here talking about a bunch of mid-range idiots. But before we start getting into that, I want to thank our sponsor, the Matabase, your home base for all things Magic the Gathering. A lot of new 2020 decks from MTG Jeff. Jams Infinite Arena, way more than I could ever tolerate. But yeah, make sure to check out MTG Jeff and everything else on the Matabase. So, I think no matter how good or bad this ended up being, it would still be in the shadow of Horizons, of War of the Spark, to extremely successful cube sets.
Well, even the set before that was really good. Like, it's just this is a core set, and only half the cards are new. So
yeah, on the tail
already the bar is like you're not going to get that.
The Ravnica block with the with all the similar cards we wanted, and Modern Horizons into this. So I think no matter what the set would have been, barring it being a new plane, but it was probably going to be fairly lackluster. So unfortunately, Core 2020, you get the raw end of the stick. But speaking of that, for today's format, we're only going to do top 8. Finding 8 might have been kind of hard, but we're talking about 8 today. Nah, it's not too serious. There's a couple honorable mentions. We have the Flash 4/4 Wolf. That card's okay. It just kind of forces you to play, off curve, which is a bunch of whatever.
I like Yeva.
Yeah, I think if I were to play the Flash Wolf, I would just play Yeva as the upside. If I especially want to play in these blue green decks. There's the 4-mana black. I can't remember any of these cards. The 4-mana 3/3 black creature when I play Swamp.
Yeah, it's like Swamp Fall.
Yeah, Swamp Fall. Lose life, draw card, or do some stuff. So there's a couple cards that are just on the brim of being almost okay enough to talking about in the top 8 of this set, unfortunately. But on brand on that list is Rotting Regisaur. So Rotting Regisaur is 2 and a black for a 7/6 zombie dinosaur. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card. This guy's a unit. This guy doesn't mess around, So 3-mana 7/6, no evasion. Is zombie. That's good. Good creature type. Dinosaur, less good.
But it's like one of those talks where how large does the creature need to be before it's a must run or it's really good.
Yeah, so the argument is if you have a 6-mana 1,000, it's unplayable. It's not good, barring fling. But there's the bar's pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? Not in the bar. Without having evasion, there's having a big guy just isn't good enough. It's not going to be good enough. And this card just walks into jump blockers all day. But it's the lowest mana cost possible for the biggest guy possible at the moment.
And the upside is if you can't discard, it doesn't just die. So.
Yeah, and so, if you feel like a demon in the past would have this effect, but you'd sacrifice it if you didn't have it. Rotting Regisaur doesn't have that. It just discards a card in the turn, discards a card in your upkeep, so if it dies right away, no downside, right? No, what's the word? No cost.
2 for 1?
No 2 for 1. So, obviously, this guy slots into a fairly aggressive deck. Those kind of decks, this downside might only be a downside for a turn or two, maybe. Obviously, once you go Hellbent, destroying and playing whatever you have, maybe not be the worst. At the same time, it doesn't let you keep up anything. Once was it Masticore locked? You go on your last card, you don't really get the option of I could draw Doomblade. I guess I'm using it now. Or I drew this other effect. I can't sandbag. I just have to lose it, or use it or lose it. So. You could also interact well with various Gravecrawler effects. This guy is pretty, you get what you see. He's not really hiding anything. He's a 3-mana 7/6. He'll probably play out okay. No evasion, he'll hurt him. Black's creatures, especially aggressive creatures, from 3/4, aren't the greatest. this guy's probably okay. I think this guy, you'll probably have to play him a couple times to finally really understand what he does, but how big the risk is. But
depends from list to list.
Yeah. If you can make any use of the discard effect, like if it's ever, discard a Lingering Souls one time, you feel like a champion, but... Well, I don't know, this card's big enough, like it's tempting enough that I'm going to try for a bit, but I imagine he's just going to run into a lot of soldier tokens. But whatever, that's life. That didn't work at all. Number 7 on our list is Kaikar. Kaikar Winds Fury. 1 blue, red, white.
And the name,
legendary creature bird wizard. Wizard good type. Flying. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Sacrifice a spirit, add a red to your mana pool. 3/3. I think I said it was 3/3. It's 4 mana 3/3 flyer. So this card's interesting. It's interesting that, we don't get... We got a handful of wedge cards in a core set, which is not super...
uncommon.
Yeah, not at all. So, remember when they didn't print legends in core sets?
Too complicated.
Yeah, too complicated. So, now we got new legends. Kaikar Winds Fury.
Multicolored legend.
Slots into those, if you really, really like the Spells Matters deck, this guy's just another part of that deck. I find myself...
Conflicted?
Well, conflicted. Like, I like that deck. I never really liked Talrand. The 4 mana 2/2 was never really appealing to me. And this thing is a 4 mana 3/3 with no immediate effect. Hard to cast. Better body. Has flying.
Flies.
Blah, blah. It gives you this moderate upside of making your spirits into red mana randomly. But, again, not the greatest body. But then something like Murring Mystic comes out. And Murring Mystic is just a 3 mana 1/5 that comes up the board super well. 1/4, sorry.
4 mana.
Comes with the board really well.
4 mana 1/5.
Blocks, it's just way better at blocking, as well as giving me these evasive 1/1 spirits. So, Kaikar, by comparison, is significantly harder to cast, a better body, but much more likely, dies. Having the 1 more toughness obviously puts it out of all the Searing Spear effect ranges. I'm never afraid of blocking with Murmuring Mystic, really. Its mana cost is really appealing. There's a lot of things about it that I like over Kaikar, but I think if you're deep enough in that category, you play Electromancers or something like that, you already have a suite of creatures, this card will fit in there too. And it's not like there's a huge amount of tricolor cards that are really trying to force themselves in.
It's kind of like, Mantis Rider was the premier card for that color combination.
Yeah.
But before that, Lightning Angel kind of plays better because it's got more toughness, and it doesn't come down on turn 3 anyways. So... The 3 toughness is probably easily the thing that's going to hold this thing back, if any. Yeah,
this card's definitely interesting. Again, being an X3 does hold it back. I'm not super deep into the Spells Matters deck. I know I go as far as Murmuring Mystic, and that's kind of where it stops. So, I'm not a huge fan of Kaikar, but I'm, again, you could use more playable tricolor cards, and this card isn't far off. Brings us to number 6, Drawn from Dreams. I thought it was Dawn from Dreams, which also wouldn't really make that much sense either. So, 2 blue sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order.
The random order is the deal breaker.
What's the fair mana cost for Dig Through Time? Apparently it's 4 and it's at sorcery. So, Dig Through Time's effect is insane. For 4 mana, it still feels insane. As a sorcery, that's, you're investing your whole turn for it, but it's so good. It's so much, it's like so much card value. Well, not card value, but card quality, you know what I mean?
Arguably, you're comparing it to probably Treasure Cruise more because it's a sorcery.
Maybe. I think that obviously the parallels of Dig Through Time, literally the same effect, just that different costs. So obviously, most people have resolved to Dig Through Time. If you play Dig Through Time, the Legacy League, it's unfortunately banned in Legacy, so I cannot play it. But if you already played Dig Through Time, you probably don't need sorcery 4 mana Dig Through Time. But if you don't play Dig Through Time, I'm gonna try Drawn from Dreams 4 mana sorcery Dig Through Time. I think if they made this like a 5 mana instant, is that too good? Instead of a 4 mana sorcery.
Wouldn't that be just better Jace's ingenuity?
Yes, but I'm just saying.
Do you run Jace's ingenuity?
Yeah, I run Mystic Confluence. That's a Jace's ingenuity when it wants to be.
That is fair.
So, Drawn from Dreams, I don't want to underrate the power of this ability, obviously. Again, for 4 mana sorcery, I don't know if that's necessarily where you want to fight for, but in my head, if I have to cast Fact or Fiction on my turn, but I get this effect instead, I think I'm fine with that. So I'm gonna try it anyway. See how it goes. Again, the effect is very, very powerful. It's. I don't want to just brush it off and regret it later. That's kind of where I'm at. I can't imagine you'll try this card.
Oh, definitely.
Because you played Dig Through Time and Treasure Cruise, so this isn't.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine on your radar. So it's on my radar. That brings us to number 5, Knight of the Ebon Legion. 1 black, 1/2, Vampire Knight. Pay 2 and a black. Knight of the Ebon Legion gets +2/+3 and gains Death Touch on turn. And at the beginning of your end step, if a player lost 4 more life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Knight of the Ebon Legion.
Well, arguably, this card's very hard to evaluate until you play with it.
I thought this card gave itself +2/+2 until earlier today.
Until you just read it.
No, I was talking with a judge, and I was like, yeah, +2/+2. No, it's +2/+2. Oh, the card's way better. So, I think this card, like at face value, it doesn't look really exciting. I think the 4 life is pretty steep, especially when it gave itself +2/+2. To give itself the counter, I think that's kind of just like an added benefit. So, just as a 1-mana 1/2 with this Root Wall effect, I think that's the comparison.
Yeah.
It's very serviceable. Like, it'll probably do what you want it to do. Obviously, you don't have to buff it if you can just play on curve and make your opponent lose a life. With a combination of like a burn spell or something.
Hit them with Rotting Regisaur.
Hitting them with Rotting Regisaur gives us a Sky counter. But again, with burn spells, are just playing on curve. It's not too hard to get this thing a counter, but I think it just kind of gets counters a little too slow.
I don't think you play it on 1.
I think this card is it's like serviceable on 1, but like it's a 1-drop that the saying it's good on it's good on 1, it's good on 10. And this card is a good example of that. It's 1-drop that's fine turn 1, it's fine turn 10 because it's a 1-drop that has some sort of mid to late game upside, obviously. So getting Death Touch 2 is also no joke. So even if you do draw later, like even though if you don't want to send with it, it still eats a blocker or eats an attacker. But this card has a lot of text for being a 1-drop, and I'm sure it can't be that bad. That's kind of where I'm at.
The best part is it doesn't need to be in play to get the counter. You can wait until I take the damage.
Yeah, send my team,
and then play it.
Play him, get it, roam to a 2/3. So yeah, I think this card is a little better. I think. So I guess what it competes with is Black's infinity amount of Gravecrawler effects.
That
so 1 mana,
usually
2
can't
ones
block.
that either can't block and buy themselves back.
Or come into play tapped.
Yeah. So he plays from a different angle. Obviously, he's just much more of an aggressive creature, where the other ones are aggressive and recurable. So there's probably space for this card to exist. I'm sure this card is very, very serviceable. You know what? This guy is in my initial wave of additions, but he might be added shortly.
+3/+3 is better than +2/+2.
It is strictly better than I thought it was. It brings to the face of the set, Chandra, Awakened Inferno at number 4. With the thing I hate most about this card is that its art doesn't match. So the first little Chandra and teenage Chandra and adult Chandra. Adult Chandra is a different artist. So Chris Ron drew adult Chandra, and then someone else drew April something. Anyway, drew the first 2, and they don't match, and it's frustrating. Anyway, Chandra, Awakened Inferno, 4 red. Legendary Planeswalker Chandra starts with 6 loyalty, has a static ability. This spell can't be countered, so a recurring mechanic from War the Spark, or I don't know if mechanic is the right term, but the static ability Planeswalkers gained from that set.
Introduced.
So +2, each opponent gets an emblem with at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 1 damage to you. -3, Chandra Awakened Inferno does 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. And then -X, Chandra Awakened Inferno deals X damage to a creature or planeswalker. If a permanent would die this way, exile instead.
So I read this card, and I could only think of that. I think it was from Zendikar, where you put a burn counter on their lands, and then it says, "This still burns you," or something.
I hate it. The land continues to burn. Yeah, I hate that.
That's what this is.
That flavor text. So Chandra Awakened Inferno, the obvious comparison is Chandra Flamecaller. This card, the thing I like the most about this card, and I think the same thing about Chandra Flamecaller, is that Chandra Flamecaller has 3 abilities immediately. You can play it and make 2/3/1s. You can play it and -X to deal X damage to everything, or you can play it and wins a change your hand. This card is almost identical. It might even have 3.5 abilities being not counterable in certain matchups. So again, all 3 abilities are turned on immediately, which is great. Like you can't really ask for too much more out of this card. So all 3 abilities are very, very similar to Flamecaller's abilities in a way. So instead of making the 2/3 ones, it gives them the emblem. So if they are able to clean up your Chandra, they will continue to burn. We'll get them eventually. The minus X on Flamecaller deals X damage to everything. This one, it does 3 damage to all non-elementals. I can't imagine the elemental thing coming up too often, but it just does 3 instead of the set number.
I'm sure there's some random cards in your queue that are elementals, and it'll get you.
So, and instead of having, I guess the Flamecaller has this Winds of Change, so discard X, draw X +1. This one has to deal X damage to any creature or planeswalker, which I really, really like. And then it exiles this
It's
way.
like original Chandra. I used to
It is kind of like
kill Baneslayer Angel when it came down.
Yeah, it came with 6 loyalty and -5 with the kill.
I think it's 5 loyalty.
Is it? You just trade 1 for 1? I thought it lived afterwards.
Maybe it did.
Anyway. So, Awakened Inferno is a very good card. I think this card is more than good. I think this card is perform great in every cube. So, I guess it comes down to, do you want to play 6 mana Chandra Awakened Inferno and Chandra Flamecaller? And I think this kind of comes down to what you want this card to do. So they're both these weird control planeswalkers. You know what I mean? Which is
I'm a big fan of, because it allows red to do more things than just play little guys in attack.
Yeah. So they both put a clock on. They both remove multiple permanents or multiple threats, and the trade-off is one Winds of Change, the other one does nuke something. So I think Flamecaller is better.
For me, it's Flamecaller, partly only because I have the promo version with the zombie Chandra.
One.
But the Pyroclasm effect is you can scale up to 4
Yeah,
if you need to.
Being able to scale it is huge. But at the same time, being able to just nuke one X5, being able to nuke a Baneslayer Angel, still fairly appealing. Was a Flamecaller starts with 5 loyalty? So
I think it's a much higher chance your opponent will have something that you need to kill that has 4 toughness, as opposed to something that has 5 toughness.
Yeah, so dealing 3 damage in red is really easy. Like we mentioned before, there's so many different things that deal with 3. Oh, it starts with 4 too. See?
Yeah. You have to bin your planeswalker if you do it for 4.
So, I do like that if I don't know.
Like your hero Bladehold, that thing has to die. And this, while we'll do it, it probably has a bunch of little guys.
I think this card will play very similar, to be honest. I think it comes down to this probably personal preference. I can't imagine playing one or the other can't be wrong. They're both very, very good.
Playtesting will show you.
Again, Chandra Flamecaller puts on the clock way faster than this card does.
I'm a big fan of that too. I like the.
It does. It
you
does give you a win condition.
3. You send it into for 6. Way better than 1 turn.
Yeah. Again, the scalable damage that Flamecaller can do, that it can threaten, dealing to 4, is a huge upside. Doesn't have to come at the cost of herself. And then the Winds of Change effect, which is fairly unique.
I've never activated.
I've only activated it once. So, as much as I like that effect, I don't know how much value I should put into it, because I've only ever activated it once in the years since both the Game Watches come out. I think if this card didn't have such a high starting price, I'd probably just swap one or the other, and I'm sure I'd be happy with either. But maybe we'll do that down the road. Again, Chandra Awakened Inferno, I think I rank it just under Flamecaller. But again, they're both extremely similar, very good. You really can't do wrong playing either of them. The cycle is so boring. And you know what? I guess the Titan cycle was also extremely boring, but they're just all so much better. So it's all is forgiven,
I've said once or twice before, when I built my list, all I did was go to the 6 CMC and write down all 6 Titans on the line in my Google spreadsheet, or Excel at that point, and start from there. That's not going to happen with this set.
So we only got 2. The first one we're talking about is Cavalier Knight. So Cavalier Knight is a 2 triple black 4/5 lifelink elemental knight. Not a zombie. Should have been a zombie. When Cavalier Knight enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. And when it dies, return target creature card with conversion cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I like that this one interacts with itself, supports itself. You can see sack a guy, bring it back. Previously, Black 5s were still the greatest, but we've gotten a couple back-to-back now. So we got Massacre Girl, Bontu, God Eternal Bontu. So there's a couple more that I'm already testing them. I haven't really tried out God Eternal Bontu that much, or even Massacre Girl all that much. That without those 2, I'd be more prone to try this. But because I'm already trying those 2 cards, and they're way more entertaining than this card is,
The triple black's a high cost to entertain.
Yeah. I think this card is probably going to get a little less attention than maybe it should. But I think just at face value, this card is fine. It's like not...
It's got a lot of text.
It does have a lot of text. It has lifelink in black, which is nice. A lot of your black cards cost life.
It's got a big body.
It's a big mid-range idiot. It's like a bigger Shriek Maw with a relevant body that you can't, play for 2 mana. So, again, black creatures aren't anything, are too good. So, I don't know. I'm like trying to justify this card in my head, but it's probably still
Gets
a
Rotting
short.
Regisaur back from the graveyard.
It does buy back Rotting Regisaur, which is the new meta pretty soon. So
we have Bone Dragon too, right? The Cole back.
Yeah, you can call back. This card does interact with you can sacrifice your Bone Dragon to buy back Bone Dragon. But you won't. Yeah, anyway. I'm probably trying to justify this card in my head because I think I was really close to adding it, but ultimately it's just like not exciting enough. Black already has Ravenous. It has 1,000 Ravenous Chupacabra effects. Do I want another Chupacabra effect at a cost of sacrificing creature, triple black? Probably not. Again, I do think this is the one that I like the most, which is probably why we're talking about it in the first place. But it's probably just short of being good enough. I think if my cube was like, I don't even know how much bigger it'd have to be for me to just like add it in right away. So I don't know. I'm just trying to justify it this way. We're good. We're over Cavalier Knight. So that brings us to number 2. I guess we just passed 3. I didn't mention that the Black Knight was 3, but number 2, Cavalier Gales. 2 blue 5/5 flying Elemental Knight. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. Then put 2 cards from your hand on top of the library in any order. And when it dies, shuffle it in your library. Scry 2. This is the best one. This is the best knight. It's still boring. It's such a boring cycle. Someone told me that it might be the theme is they might go to Theros, so like that's why there's this enchantment-y,
get else
devotion-y theme going on. I don't know how. I literally have no idea if that's true, but look forward to Mono Blue Devotion with Cavalier Gales. Anyway, 5-mana 5/5 flyer continues down the route that Wizards keeps printing these hyper efficient blue creatures.
Blue gets everything.
Yeah, just like efficient power, toughness, flying, everything's great. All the Cafnets of the world, another list of them. So the Brainstorm's great. It doesn't really die forever. It just goes back in your library for you to play it again. So it's a threat that you can kind of bank on always kind of having.
This one could be exiled.
This one can be. That's okay. Like Scry 2, I like a lot of this card. There's something that you can say really say it's a negative, except for the triple blue. The blue is a deterrent, but we're already trying to cast like Cryptic Commands and Archmage Charms, so it's like not that bad. But
Are you trying Archmage Charm?
I'm not. But I know people are. The card's cool. Anyway. So if you need blue 5s, there's not very many blue 5s. And we talked about black 5s. Blue 5s even worse. But blue's always been this kind of like sore spot in my cube. I don't like using maybe that sore spot, but like, every time I look at my cube, I look at like my curve. Like 1 drops, 2 drops, 3 drops, 4 drops, blah, 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 So the curve's all nice. But blue is a bunch of like 1 drops, 2s, 3s, 4s, maybe some 5s, like a bunch of like...
That looks even to me, It's nice...
like
it's a nice wave.
Obviously, blue is a much more spell-heavy color, where like green is obviously like only guys and then some spells. So, the creature curve in blue, I've just abandoned. Like they're just not gonna. It's not gonna happen. They're just not created equally. So, if numbers are your thing, Cavalier Gales is great. Again, blue 5s are bad. This one's serviceable. Not exciting, but serviceable. Just like this whole
set.
Whole set. The whole cycle is boring. Like none of them are exciting. It's like, I guess Titans also like actually if you look at them objectively, like these cards aren't exciting at all. With the exception of maybe Grave Titan. Like bringing a bunch of homies is pretty sweet. But like none of them are exciting. Literally none. But they're really, really good.
Wormcoil's excited.
Titans are really good, so at least they all is forgiven. So anyway, that brings us to number 1 of maybe the least exciting set in years. That's Voracious Hydra. Bet you didn't think Voracious Hydra was coming. Voracious Hydra. Anyway, X green 0/1 Trample Hydra. When it enters the battlefield with it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. When it enters the battlefield, choose one. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on it, or it fights target creature you don't control. So the reason why I like this card the most is because green 4s are pretty medium, and this card really starts scaling at 4. Like you don't really, not really.
I don't
play
think
this
you
thing.
played this before 4.
You can play it for 3 as a 3-mana 2/3.
Yeah, I don't try and play Riot Devils in my.
You can play a 3-mana 1/2 that kills Mana Elf. Hey. Anyway, party starts at 4. It scales okay. It's just a 4-mana 4/5 trample worst case, or a 4-mana 2/3 that shoots a guy down, kind of a red cap. I don't know how you want to compare it, but this is one of the Hydras that scales with has trample. It could be a giant idiot, but has trample. Very, very important. So, at the end of the day, like I'm actually not super jacked about this card. It's one of the few cards I'm adding from the set originally, but it's a green creature. It scales fun. It's like a Hydra that they've printed. That like finally that I'm excited to play. Excited. Excited is probably
is a Hydra.
Happy to play. That card's a Hydra. It's not really a Hydra.
It's
you know
a Hydra.
It doesn't have the Hydra mana
It
costs.
says it's on its creature tag.
I understand, but it doesn't have the Hydra mana costs.
Chameleon Colossus you played back in the day.
I play Beautiful too, the best Hydra. So, Voracious Hydra, again, scales really well, is just a big idiot. Has Trample, which is the key ingredient to make this card okay. And then, gives us something that green doesn't have access to very often, that's being able to... Oh, that's not true. They have 1,000 fight effects. But it's a fight effect that's like stapled onto a card that's already fairly playable as it is. So, it gives it either a big guy or a removal spell, which is something that green doesn't get the option to get to have both very often. So, Voracious Hydra is our number 1, if you can believe that.
As of right now, I'm adding no cards from this set.
I'm adding Voracious Hydra.
But I will be getting Voracious Hydra eventually.
Rotting Regisaur, Drawn from Dreams, and probably the 1-drop. But nothing, I had to reach a bit to add any of those cards, admittedly. And again, core sets are typically a bit of a miss. I know the last one we got, 2019, was still kind of whatever. Had Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas, cool card at least. And then before that we had Origins, which was excellent. But
it's because it didn't have M number, right?
Core sets are a pretty big, like a pretty high variance. So we rolled bad, but it's okay, Again, we're just off the back of two of the best sets, arguably in years for cubes. So they can all be winners. They can all be Voracious Hydra. Anyway. That's it. That's it for 2019. 2020. Oh god, it's been a long weekend. So the set's really shallow. There's a lot of medium. People are really talking about the 3-mana 2/1 blue flyer that comes into play and draws a card.
I had it on my short list for a bit, and I was like,
Yeah, I'm not super jazzed about that card. It's like a flying fiddle flip for 1 more mana. I don't know. Anyway, core sets, unfortunately, not very exciting. But you know what? That's fine. Could use an easy episode.
Save some wallets.
Save some. Yeah, thank God. Horizons are so expensive. And it keeps going up, which is the worst part. Jesus.
So I had to order all those foils. Ugh. It's like
anyway,
$800 down.
That's so much. Oh my God, it's so expensive. So, the big state of the court 2020. Before we wrap up, again, I want to thank the Mana Base, your home base for all things Magic the Gathering. Be sure to check them out for all of our not so regular release content. But yeah, let us know how you thought of this top 8's format. I know we were a little all over the place still, but we try to mess around a bit, make some new things, spice it up, spice of life.
We were just trying to spice this set up because we couldn't find any cards.
Sure to start taking Reddit submitted custom cards. Start evaluating those.
I'm out. Cutting my contract. I don't think I have a contract.
No contracts. Anyway, I guess that's it for us today. I'm Aaron.
I'm Drew.
Hopefully your pre-release was fun.